At Pure Jade, we believe success and fulfillment in anything begins with physical and mental wellness. By improving your mood and helping your body operate at peak performance, we believe you can achieve any goal you aspire to. Our wellness products are designed to offer natural stress reduction, boost mood, improve physical recovery, and fight off inflammation to help you be at your best. Try Pure Jade CBD and experience elevated wellness. For more information, go to www.purejade.com. That's www.purejayde.com and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Welcome back to Shall You Proceed podcast. I am with someone absolutely amazing with me today. I'm so excited about this. It's been a long time coming. He's been avoiding the show for lack of a haircut or a shave. I don't understand. He's been on everyone else's show but mine, but he decides to abandon me because of a lack of a haircut and a shave. Mr. Marquis Taylor from Detroit Worldwide Podcast, journalist, educator, husband, entrepreneur. I mean, round of applause, round of applause. Mr. Taylor, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this. And just looking at your intro and I see everything, I'm just like amazed. I'm like, whoa, I've watched the show, but I didn't know all of
I'm
this
working on
detail
it.
goes into it. So I'm just taken
I'm
aback.
working
So
on
thank
it.
you. Yeah.
Oh no, thank you for being here. I respect you so much, and you are one of the first people to show me so much love in this podcast game. You gave me one connect that has blossomed into a great friendship, a great collaboration. And with that connection, I got more connections, and then you sent me more people. It's been really, I have to say that you are one of the handful, maybe four people that when I started doing this independently, truly showed me respect and love. And I truly honor and thank you for that. It's just amazing. I like what you do. So,
I appreciate that. And shout out to Jason Phillips because that's a good brother anyway. I knew that based on our interaction, him being on my podcast back in May of 2019, it would be a good look for you. Just given the story that he has, he and I have a lot of similarities, a lot of lived experiences. So that dude is dope. And then shout out to the homie Caleb Boswell. Went to school with him, so that's a
yes.
good
Yes.
dude of mine. So yeah, I'm excited. You doing it big. I mean,
Oh,
to me, I look at
wow.
podcasting like doing music. It's about making songs together, and you out in Texas. And the way I look at it, Detroit, Texas connection, we making a song together right now.
Oh, well, look at that. We doing it. We doing it big. I did not do you justice with the introduction. So I want everyone, please tell everyone who you are, what you do, where you're located. So please tell everybody where you are.
For sure. I don't know should I be looking directly into my screen or I don't know.
If
But
I
anyway,
look
this is
up
my
at the
first.
camera, it feels funny. So I look at the screen.
Okay, bet. So I'm Marquis Taylor. I am born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. As Elise alluded to, I host the Detroit Worldwide Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Detroit Worldwide Podcast, and then on IG. I'm pretty sure I'll say all this stuff later, but currently living in the Twin Cities right now, Minneapolis, Minnesota, St. Paul, but closer to the Minneapolis area. Been here for 7 years, work at the University of Minnesota. That's what brought me to Minnesota. The podcast has been out since May of 2019. I mentioned one of my guests, Jason Phillips. He's one of my original guests, and we really are just amplifying the voices of Detroit, kind of telling those stories for us to really shed light on the city. I love the episodes that I do with the Black business owners and the entrepreneurs because I'm all about collectivism and us kind of coming together as Black people. So, yeah, I'm excited. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, you said a mouthful.
Oh no. I mean, what I was looking at, because I know you're an educator.
Mm-hmm.
You're you're a big advocate for students and mentorship
Mm-hmm.
and helping those kids who are always left behind. So, what drew you to for that to be your passion when it comes to, because that's a hard job in itself, being a teacher or educator. And then on top of that, your true passion is helping those students, those kids who may not, like you said, they're marginalized. They may not be heard. They don't have a voice. What led
Mm-hmm.
you to that decision?
Well, that's a really good question. Lived experience. For me, I'm the first in my family to attend college. I was a first generation college student who became a first generation college graduate. And I was conditionally admitted into my undergraduate institution. I attended Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan, but it goes back further. I was an underachiever in high school. I did not take college very seriously. In fact, I didn't know what I was going to do until probably after high school graduation. But even going there, like I graduated high school, and I put this in air quotes here, with a 1.9 GPA. So thinking about, yeah, I know, right? Thinking about high school, thinking about the next level was just something that was something I wasn't even thinking about. And then the ACT exam, I don't even know why I bothered to take it. Got like a 13 or something, if I remember correctly. So that kind of goes to show you like how seriously I took post-secondary education. And then, of course, being conditionally admitted into Wayne State through a program called the Division of Community Education, DCE for short. And that program was geared toward students who come from, different parts of the city, across the state, world, whatever the case may be. And they really did a good job in nurturing us and providing that support. We had to meet with our advisors, 3 or 4 times a semester. We had supplemental support by way of tutoring, academic advising, you name it. It was just really holistically supporting students. So that's what kind of got my motor running. I was a peer mentor in that program as well upon completion of that program. And that's sort of what like got my gears going and sparked my interest and like lit that fire to like, yo, I want to like help people who are like me. And then, coincidentally, the same students that I was working with as a peer mentor, they are all coming from the same city as me, coming from Detroit, and just lived experience. And so that's like a long version or an abbreviated long version to your sort of short question.
Oh, it's okay. No, please. I love the elaboration. So, but like right
Mhm.
now, you are in your current position, you are a advisor.
Advisor and program coordinator.
So, how has that played into your passion?
I would say I work with students in the STEM field. And let me just preface by saying I'm an English major. Only took what was required of me to graduate. So I did not take any math class past algebra or chemistry, things like that. So how that kind of played a role into what I'm doing now. When I first arrived in Minnesota, I was working with students in the health sciences. So students who had aspirations to attend medical, dental, and pharmacy school. So now I'm currently working with students who want to become engineers. So like a industrial engineer or a chemical engineer, mechanical. And with that in mind, knowing how um, there's a strong likelihood that you'll come out with you'll be making bank, for lack of what I'm saying. You'll come
Right. No,
out making some
absolutely.
money.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And working with those students now, I work with students who are coming from marginalized backgrounds. So like the National Society of Black Engineers, or NSBE for short, the Society of Hispanic professional engineers, and then the indigenous population as well. So really advocating on their behalf, making sure that resources are given to them, of course, directly advising them, and also working with individuals who came through the program similar to myself at Wayne State University, who might have been, conditionally omitted or just having that support. So I will say all of my lived experiences have been coupled into my current role, and just it's me. That's who I am as a person.
And I think it's a testament to say that you don't have to be in that field. Like you said, you're an English major, and STEM, as we all
Mm-hmm.
know, is not liberal arts. Okay. So you don't
It's
have
not.
to be in that field to mentor in that field. It's all about encouraging, nurturing, cultivating to give them encouragement to go after their dreams, go after their goals. So you're doing that. So you're full-fledged advocating for the youth, getting them on board, making sure they're going down the path of success, and you podcasting. So tell me about your podcast, Detroit Worldwide. I think is interesting because your show truly highlights everyone Detroit of color. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can find your show on Apple, Spotify, Podbean. I have it up right now. And what I love about your show is every person you highlight, it's like encouraging. Even me right now, I'm encouraged to talk about that. You have podcasters, you have journalists, you have activists, you have everyone. So what made you go from mentoring kids and getting them at the beginning of their lives to now highlighting Detroit?
Wow, good question. Short answer to that is living in Minnesota. I mean, I travel across when we could travel, but I travel very frequently, at least 3 or 4
Right.
times a year. And one thing that you always notice, people will notice about me, a couple of things. One, um, I always have on my D stuff. I got on my Tigers jersey and stuff like that too, just to let people know I'm really repping it. And people
Mm-hmm.
just talk about Detroit. And I wanted to create a space where my lived experience in Detroit is a lot different. Let's say Jason's, for example, because he was one of the original guests on the podcast, and talking about what that looks like, and being able, again, example I use, amplifying those stories, but then also like it. One of the things I think it is about is community and like collectivism, but also um, us kind of talking about Detroit culture. What's
Mm-hmm.
funny, Jason and I graduated high school the same year. He and I can kind of chop it up about what is it like growing up in Detroit. The same for some of the most
Right.
recent episodes. You mentioned like some activists and actresses I've had on there. And the
Yeah.
common theme is that we all know that Detroit is about Black excellence. It had a very influential role in our life, regardless if me here in Minnesota, Jason in North Carolina. I think the people you might be mentioning are like in New York or LA, wherever the case may be.
But their
Detroit
roots, their
is
roots are Detroit, though. That's where it comes from.
exactly. It
Wherever they
comes back
are
to that.
worldwide, their roots are Detroit. Yeah.
That's what it all comes down to. So having that Black excellence and just that being instilled in us, and it really influences the way that we see the world. I know for me on a daily, I wear other stuff. Like I might wear like some University of Minnesota hoodie. That's only because I work there. But more often than not, you'll see me in some sort of like Detroit, whether it be a Pistons or a Tigers or whatever the case may be, is always representing Detroit. And I think that the guests make the show. As you already know, as your show is interview driven, it's the same as mine, but the guests, they tell the story and they make the show. So I love it. It's fun.
I think it's amazing. I love, I'm with you. The guest really makes the show. You can have a great topic, you can have great graphics, you can have all these things, but it's who you put in front of that microphone to tell their story.
Hmm.
You want to have, I think you will agree with me on this. With our platforms, you want to be motivating. You want to put out there the stories you may not hear on a regular basis. You want to talk, you want to
Mm-hmm.
highlight those people who are truly rooted in their love of their career, their passion, where they come from, and they've made a difference, And in this world right now, being people of color, you really want to highlight all ages, for all ages, those success stories.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's background's not squeaky clean. It may not be a bed of roses, but they've made it. They've done it. No matter where they're located, hey, I represent where I come from. This is who I am. On top of that, let's discuss besides all of that, because I don't think anyone's fully realizing how heavy your plate is and how much you do. You know, you're a husband. Are you a father as well?
No. I
But
have
Jason,
nieces and
like,
nephews.
no.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's also a lot. You're a husband, devoted, loving husband. Shout out to your wife.
Mm-hmm.
You dedicated your career to education, which is difficult and going to be
Mm-hmm.
more difficult with what we're doing now, just adjusting. You have your podcast where you want to highlight your roots and where you come from and highlight those people who are doing it big or small, but they're successful and they're making a difference. And on top of that, you something like a journalist, something like a pimp. You know, you something like a pimp. You can pop your collar if you want to. Yeah, I'm that old. I'm popping my collar. And exactly. So I mean, you're an author and you have written articles um for numerous publications,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're pretty awesome. So let's discuss Minnesota Spokesman
Spokesman
Recorder.
recorder. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Are you seeing it on there?
I see it on there. I can't believe it. And it was funny. It hasn't even been a year yet. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. And, if you want to ask me a formal question, you certainly can. But
No,
when
go
I was
ahead.
in high school, no, I was going to say when I was in high school, couple things that kind of kept me going was hip hop music because I used to do some rhyming back in the day, and then also
Right.
writing. So when I
Uh-huh.
was in high school, I came out of high school with 2002, I think. So this is around the time when Jay-Z came out with the first Blueprint, and there were a
Hmm.
couple other albums that were like, really synonymous with greatness or at that time for hip hop. So I remember writing about the first Blueprint album for Jay-Z and Nas and Redman, Eminem, whatever was popping back then. So kind of using that love for music and bringing that to paper. Now, looking at these articles with the Spokesman-Recorder, when I was younger, I wrote for the Michigan Chronicle, which is a black publication located in Detroit, Michigan. It's one of the oldest black publications in the nation. Same for the Spokesman-Recorder. Now, you pulling up this article
You want me to go back to that
between
one?
no, you're fine. You can pull them all up. That's fine.
Okay.
Between well, I wrote for the paper in Detroit from 2005 to 2009. So my
Okay.
first article was published in the Spokesman-Recorder. I want to say it was like September of 2019. So I say all this to say that I hadn't written an article or had one published in 10 years. And what brought me back
Wow.
to writing was actually podcasting. So podcasting has done so much for me that it reintroduced me to one of my old loves, writing. And I'm
Mhm.
glad to be back. Like I'm just looking at this stuff now, like it hasn't even been a year, and I think I have about 11 or 12 articles on there. So I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
so
out
grateful.
here.
Yeah,
You out here. Let me look at the one with Jilly. That's my girl, Jillian Billy, right there.
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah. I
that's
know that you went to the concert, didn't you? Or
I
you?
absolutely, yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
remember seeing it on social media. Yeah, so like that
I was
same
in the
concert.
room, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, listen, the energy is ridiculous.
And just even thinking about that, like she just recently celebrated the 20th anniversary of that
Yeah.
particular album, Who is Jill Scott? So, like me, when that album came out, I was 16 years old working at my cousin's record store. So I remember vividly people coming in there and buying that album. And for me to go to that show, I've seen Jill Scott probably about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. I don't know, but I've seen her a lot of times. But
Right.
that article that you just showed was my first time going as a person that's reporting on the show. We tried to set up an interview with her, but it was a lot that went into that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to interview her. But the point I'm trying to make is that everything in my life that God has blessed me with, but it's been like a vision, and the vision has been manifested by way of the podcast and by way of these articles that you're pulling up. And that one right there is very special to me because this young lady was on my podcast. I'm like, yo, your story is dope. I gotta like push this to rolling out. And she like, okay, bet, set it up, man. Making those connections and seeing her story. She has a black-owned beauty supply store, and she's been getting like a lot of press. But like the fact that we were able to take her story from the podcast and then transcribe it to like a newspaper, she's not going to be
Yes.
the only one. It's going to be more to come, but it's just so fascinating to see that, coming
Your
from where I'm coming
passion,
from.
yeah, your passion is amazing. And I love to see people truly work in their passion. And it's hard because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it takes some of us a long time to figure out what our passion really is. So you're from Detroit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You highlight Detroit, you highlight people that may not be famous, but you get the word out there, and just that respect you give them is amazing. How has it been for you with the state of the world right now? 2020 is, man, 2020 is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a mentor, you look for, you take care of kids, and with schools being so different the way it ended, and dealing with what you do and it being an advisor, not being able to advise maybe the usual way, how have you adjusted in that?
My philosophy with life pre and post COVID is one day at a time. That's just my philosophy on life. The way that my role has changed, I've been at home since March, pretty much. I
Yeah.
haven't gone to my office, since March, other than going up there to get some paperwork, and that was during the weekend. So it's been an adjustment. I think I'm probably more adjusted to it now than I was back then, and I think that took a few months or even a few weeks to get adjusted. So you got to improvise. Like, we have all our meetings on Zoom. We check in with our affinity groups, and what I mean by affinity groups are Black identified students, are Asian identified students. We have different measures of support, but it isn't just me that's doing it. There's an entire team of people. So just got to improvise like everybody else is doing in 2020. Like, even, and I'll probably just end here. We were looking at some of those articles, and I mean, I guess I can say it because it's not like a big deal, but there were going to be a lot of concerts that was coming to the Twin Cities, and I had this big interview planned with Drew Hill, and because
Ooh,
the concert, yeah, I know, right? Because the concert didn't happen, you have to improvise and stuff like that. So I'm feeling the pinch. I'm like, 2020, but at the same time, connecting with these local artists that's in the Twin Cities and pushing their projects and stuff. But again, 2020 is
I know
about
they appreciate
improvising.
it. Absolutely, I know they
Oh yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
it.
They do.
On
They do
top of
very
that,
much so.
absolutely, and I think we have to. That's for me as well. I like to promote the person you may not hear about all the time. Yeah, you hear about celebrities and you hear about those big names and you want those interviews, of course. It helps, but I love the ones that you don't hear about. And I think right now with everything going on, we're hearing more about those smaller businesses, those smaller artists, because everyone now on an even playing field when it comes to putting it out there. We all have to improvise. We all have to find a new way to get the word out about who we are and what we do. So even if you are famous, there's nothing for you to be famous on right now. No
Mm-hmm.
one's going to a movie, no one's going to a concert. So the smaller person, the quiet smaller business or independent artist who's been using these platforms, man, they're killing it because they've been doing it. They've been doing it for such a
Mm-hmm.
long time. So I commend you for that. with everything going on, you being a man of color, you support and you push for Black people and what they do. You from Detroit, but you live in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone doesn't understand Minnesota, you under a rock. So we're not gonna break that down. How has it been for you being a creative, being someone that has been an advocate from the beginning of your career for people of color, those who are not represented, those who do not have a voice or who are not heard, and your whole entire platform is to get those voices out there. How has it been for you right now during this unrest, this tension that we've all been used to, but it's new for it's new for everybody else? How has it been
Mm-hmm.
for you?
Challenging. I mean, I'm a black man. I identify as a black man. I'm a proud black man. So I wear that on my sleeve. I can't hide that fact. As a creative, I mean, I haven't put out a podcast episode since the end of May. And
Right.
what's funny is that the murder of George Floyd, I think George Floyd happened, I believe, on the Monday or a Sunday. And my podcast came out that Friday. I didn't promote it heavily because in my spirit, I was like, yo, I can't do it. But um, I just kind of took like a hiatus. And it was other things that was going on personally. But I had to like pivot for a second. I'm like, okay, what can I do as a content creator, as a black man? And there are things I've done silently that I wouldn't speak about publicly that, happened in here in the Twin Cities. But using the gifts that God gave me, going back to writing, my homegirl's article that you showed on a Rolling Out magazine, we had to get that out there. I know that wasn't necessarily like a social unrest, but it was just more so like using that, telling those stories, being able to, again, use the gifts that God gave me and really analyzing like, okay, what is my purpose? And praying what that purpose is. How can I be used as a vessel with everything that's been given to me? How can I use that to amplify voices? So there'll be more things that are coming out, but I think on a personal level for me, you really have to think about this, how are you showing up in spaces? Or not even how are you showing up in spaces. Like, we're black, we know how it is, you out in Texas, and then of course everything that's happened out in Minnesota. And how am I navigating as a black man who has a black spouse, who comes from a black family, who comes from a black city? Detroit is a chocolate city,
Yeah,
the D
yeah.
is
I mean, yeah,
is black as hell, but how
yeah.
am I navigating it? How am I showing up as a black man? So these are things that I've wrestled with and just thought about as a 36-year-old black man who does the work that I do. And I have to think about, what does that mean in terms of how I'm showing up, but also the people that I'm serving, especially my people, the people who look like you and me. Like, what am I doing? That's something that I ask myself every day. It's a ongoing quest, if you will. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's how I've been
No,
navigating the space since everything that's been going on.
there's no right or wrong answer. I'm not sure how much
Yeah.
you really want to get to Minnesota. Um, but I think for me, piggybacking on what you're saying, when I took a break in February, my plan was to come back and record in March, and I always take like a little 3-week break after I finish the season just to kind of regroup, refresh, recharge. And then you had COVID hit, and I was going into a studio, and I'm like, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I had to get creative, and then thinking about what will I put out there, because right now the only thing anyone's thinking about is COVID. And then when I started doing shows when COVID started, then you had George Floyd, then you had Breonna Taylor, then you had everything happening. And we have our own things going on in Texas, and where I come from, we have very close to home in my town, we were coming up on the year anniversary of Pamela Turner's shooting by a police officer
Mm,
out here, and we have situations in my hometown that we're dealing with when it comes to police and how certain ones treat, the citizens and the younger ones or the people of color. And I was like, what do I do? What do I put
mm,
out? Do I scratch all these ideas that I already have, bucket in the bucket? What do
mm,
I speak on? And I think people don't realize the pressure of for the creators out here to use their platform to speak on it, but you don't know when to speak on it. You don't want to speak and it's all nonsense, or you're not making a difference in some type of way. It's hard. It's hard being a
mm,
person of, being a black woman or a black man, and you're out here with a platform and everyone looking at you like, what you gonna say? What you gonna do? What you gonna speak on?
mm,
You know, because we also have, personal lives and personal jobs and personal things that we have to take care of. And, retaliation is real. Backlash is
mm,
real. And I think you have to be real careful. Like you said, you want to put it out there for your articles. You want to still give them their due. And it's just hard. It's just hard when you're living in certain areas of the country that's having direct impact of what's happening. And with where you are,
mm.
you have direct impact. So what have you seen out there? What has it been like for you out there? The energy, I
Elite.
mean, the
Yeah.
tension.
So much to unpack there, at least. I would say I would have never, ever imagine going through all of this because if you're familiar with Detroit history, they had the Detroit Rebellion, and
Hmm.
they have like documentaries and things like that. So listeners want to look into that, definitely just Google Detroit riot or Detroit rebellion. So
Hmm.
that happened in '67, and it also happened, I can't remember the other year, but I say all this to say I would have never have imagined living here that I would be experiencing this. I know people in St. Louis are probably thinking the same thing, or other places that happened first or recently, I should say. So it's taught me a lot of different things, but the most important thing that I feel that it has taught me is that people think activism and just with everything that's going on with social media that it's trendy. It's not. Let me just kind of dispel that notion, because you probably saw it on your IG page or Facebook or whatever, people out there protesting. That's dope. You doing that. But everything that you do doesn't need to be broadcast on social media. So
Absolutely.
there were people, and I can tell you from personal experience, not that it happened to me, but people who I know whose lives were affected by way of they were threatened with death. They were threatened with um, going to jail or some sort of punishment. They've had guns drawn out on them. So activism is not something that's a hashtag or something that's trendy to be on social media. This is people's lives. And if you're
Yeah.
out there or you're thinking about going out there, think about what that looks like. Because again, it's not about making your IG story look cool. It's not about going on Facebook and posting a picture for, get a bunch of likes and shit like that. Excuse my language, but people's lives were on the line. And that's what I kind of learned is like, not everybody is built to do that. It's other ways you can serve. And I don't want to like get into the things that I was able to do with that, because I like to keep those things private. But
Absolutely. I
there are
understand.
roles for everybody that everybody has the capacity to serve. I think Dr. King said that. If I think that's where I'm getting that from, but everybody has the capacity to serve. Like not everybody is meant to be on the front line. So that's one of the things that I've learned is that, you know, don't be out here on the gram posting stuff like, yo, I'm doing this or whatever. Like, nah, shit is real. Like people getting guns pulled out on them and stuff like that. Like this ain't shit to be like trying to get likes and followers and shit like that. Like, because I know people who had guns drawn on them. So I'm probably, going on a tangent there, but like that's something like I immediately
Okay.
learned, because it's
Yeah.
like, yo, this it's real. It's a real out here. Like that's why I'm
And
gonna
I was
probably end there.
no, no, and no. Feel you are safe here. Say whatever you feel like saying. I was talking to a friend of mine where I was saying, I think it was either yesterday or the other day, how we're not built like John Lewis. We're
Mm-hmm.
not built like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. People think they are, but we're really not, because we've never had to experience that type of pressure, that type of hate, and it was legal hate. We've never had to
Mm-hmm.
experience that. We never had to fight to sit somewhere. We're able to say, you can't do that to me, and not be initially drug out as being wrong. And so I fully agree with you when you say, find your lane, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how you do it. Like, if your lane is, I'll be the one to make all the copies of the flyers to pass them out, I got you. If your lane is, I'm going to hand them things out for y'all on every corner, that's my role. If you're the one on the front line with the tear gas and the rubber bullets, and you know you can handle that, that's where you need to be. We're
Mm-hmm.
all not meant to be the chief. You have to have them soldiers, and every soldier, as you know, in the military, their roles are all different. You have people on the out
Mm-hmm.
there, in the battle, in the midst of it. You have the folks who's doing intel, but also every move we make should not be publicized. Every conversation we have should not be broadcasted. We can talk
Mm-hmm.
about our feeling. We can talk about our anger. We can talk about wanting things to be different. But I also feel truly in my soul there are many conversations we need to have, that we need to have as Black people, people of color, behind closed doors.
No, I agree with that, and I'll give you like a somewhat example. And for me to bring this individual up, I mean, I'm a big fan of this person, but because I'm in this
Okay.
person's city, I am a big, huge Prince fan. Love Prince, always have, always will.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
one
yeah.
of the things that I loved about Prince, and this is we found out or learned about things after he died, the contributions that he made, he kept that stuff private. Nobody knew all of the stuff that he was doing because he's like, yo, I'm gonna do this, but don't tell nobody. And it's just interesting, like being in his city and being as big of a fan of his that I am, and thinking about ways that, and this is something I've always done anyway. It isn't just this incident, but like supporting people privately, because not everybody has the capacity to be on the front line. If you on the front line, cool. um but don't just be posting it on the gram just to try to get likes and stuff like that. I mean, for some people, it is what it is, but if you just out there just to be like, I'm out here doing this or whatever, mimicking my cell phone or whatever, you got to take this stuff seriously. And again, this man, George Floyd, died 20 minutes from my crib, 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes from my church. Like, that shit hurt. Like, it's an unspeakable hurt. It's not to say that the other murders that happened with, like, Breonna Taylor and
This is
Sean
personal
Bell.
for
I
you.
mean, I mean, yeah, the
Me,
list goes
you
on
pass
and
by
on
that.
because
You pass by that spot every day.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's a different type of unspeakable hurt, and so much so that you started to question, like, is this place safe for me? Is this it's so many different emotions that I felt, and I have unpacked them as best as I can. And luckily, having a spouse who, although we may not share the same gender, we share the same race, that we can kind of unpack those things together. So it's like a lot to even like think about those things. Even like, this is the first time I publicly said Breonna Taylor's name out loud, because my cousin has the same name, spelt the same way, same last
Oh, wow.
name.
I'm
So
sorry.
even me saying, no, it's fine. I mean, even me saying that out loud, this is my first time saying it. Like, yo, like, I want nothing to happen to my little cousin, but it feel like, processing this now, it feels like it did happen to my little cousin, because first and last name familiar to me by way of family. So I say all this to say that it's just so much to process, as a Black man, as a person that's here in the Twin Cities, and you think about, what can I do? I don't live my life in fear. So I don't think about am I next, but in the back of my mind, you know, as a black man, I'm pretty sure other black men feel this way. Maybe we do think about that. Am I next? And you think about what sort of legacy am I leading? What sort of life am I living? What impact am I making? So I try to think about things like that.
And I appreciate you sharing that. And I think the biggest, people are having these conversations and they're trying to understand, and they're trying to, like I said a long time ago, I'm tired of explaining to white people what we feel and what we're going through. The same
Mm-hmm.
way we had to study and study y'all stuff, just go study. But and I also know all about frame of reference, and even people of color, our reference is different for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right now that's personal for you on a whole nother level that I would never understand. But I also understand the fear of, will I be Breonna Taylor pretty soon? Will I be in my house
Mm-hmm.
with a no knock warrant? Y'all come through my door and you shoot me up without a word. Will I be
Mm-hmm.
someone? Will I be, Sandra Bland on a stop, and they're not listening to me, and all of a sudden I die in police custody? What happened to me? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
could I be am I going to be these things? Will I have to worry about my nephews or my friends going to a park just to chill out and get someone called police on for no reason? Or a simple stop, or they're maybe out hanging out because they're trying to have a good time now in COVID, and you have a few drinks and who gets manhandled. Those are real worries that we have as Black people that no
No,
one will understand. And
no.
and we're exhausted trying to explain to you what we're feeling. But like you said, it still goes back down to, even though we feel this way, all of us are not meant to fight this battle the same way. And we have to come together and unify that we're fighting a battle. So everything else y'all fussing about is some bullshit, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
pick how you fight that battle. But I will agree with you on this. And we have to stop doing this as Black people across the board. But because I'm Black, I know it's because, Black people do it. We need to quit trying to call out the so-called celebrity or the so-called leader and what they're doing. You have no idea what they're doing. You don't have to know what they're doing until they want you to know. Because if everyone knows your moves, there's things in place to stop our movement. So why would
Mm-hmm.
I broadcast what I'm doing? And why do I have to tell you? Why do I owe you that information?
No, I
And
agree wholeheartedly.
yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't. Why should we have to? We need to stop with, I didn't hear nothing from so and so. Why are you waiting to hear something?
Mm-hmm.
People are real good at that behind the screen bully. What you
Mm-hmm.
doing? What you doing? What have you done? Up until this time right now, what have you done? Who have you supported? Who have you helped? It's not and if you can't, who have you donated to? What have you done? We're all
Mm-hmm.
pointing this finger at people. We're pointing fingers, but what have you done? Stop looking for Beyonce and Jay-Z to do something. Stop counting their pocketbook. Stop counting Oprah's money. Stop
Mm-hmm.
counting people's money and realize that it starts at the bottom. It's all about grassroots. The biggest impact comes from the smallest amount of people sometimes.
No, I agree. And even you're making me come back to emotions that I felt or even things I saw online, is that there was this invisible pressure here and probably just across the country that you have to do something, you have to protest. And I think social media played a role in that, where you see people out here, you know, taking selfies like I'm at the protest, or I'm donating food. And not to say that those things are bad, and you know, to each his own, but it was like this invisible pressure. Even like we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I felt like there was an invisible pressure where people during COVID-19 to be productive. And I addressed that in one of the articles, like all right, you were working from home, you got to start a business, you got to do this, you got to do that. There was just such this invisible pressure, particularly from our people, from Black people, that was placing on other Black people, like, if you ain't starting no business, you weak as hell. If you not investing in no stocks, you dumb. You know.
And it kills me. Like, why are y'all acting like? Because let me tell you something. Everyone is not meant or wants to be an entrepreneur. Everyone does not want to own a business. Some people are really good with going in, doing a 9 to 5, getting promoted. They find joy in that. Some people want to work and still do their passion. Like, I don't plan on going anywhere from I love what I do. Even if this becomes some major thing, I love what I do. I like being a librarian. I like what I do. So stop making, I understand. I do feel though, and this is not pressure, but I do feel that during COVID, it should change your mindset of appreciation. And if you haven't learned anything, to me during this time, we all should have learned something, be it who you are really, what your relationship really like. Are you really happy? Because I really believe that we were sat down for a reason. You know what I mean? And I really feel that, I'm not saying become, like you said, you don't have to become a stock market or investment, because folks are losing their job. So you may have learned how to save. You may have been learning how to ration better. You may have learned that, you know what, I'm living above my means, or I'm living at my mean. Let me live below my means. Let me stop doing what I'm doing. Let me take the money that I'm really saving. I'm not going to brunch, or I'm not doing that, and do something different. So I think people are just, it sounds good. People want to sound important. People want to sound like they really doing something, and they ain't doing shit. Because at the end of the day, they're not. At the end of the day, everyone's experience is different. Like for me, I never complained because I felt guilty to complain. I'm like, I'm home. I'm still getting a paycheck. I don't have any kids to feed. I'm by myself in the house. I just got to make sure I'm stockpiled for me alone. I don't have to worry about bringing home a sickness to someone else. My dad's in California. I'm worried about him, but at least I can say I'm not going to make him sick. My siblings all have their families. I'm like, I can't complain. I can't be mad about this. I haven't lost my job. I wasn't furloughed. None of my family went through that. So I'm like, I don't want to complain. So what should I do? I don't. So I agree with you. We need to quit with the whole, that bullying that we do with each other overall. Like, you ain't doing anything. You don't know what someone's doing, and you don't know what they're going through. So many people before this hit were living check to check and didn't even know they're living check to check. Didn't even know that if the check stopped, life was going to be real, real brand new. So we need to quit that. And I think right now with everything, we're just so much more aware, because we're not able to move how we want to move. So now it's like, what do I do? And I also agree with you with, you don't have to show off how you support. You don't have to show off how you support. And you may not mean anything by it, but why do you have to show off how you support? Just do what you have to do. People don't have to know your movements, because we don't know their movements. We have no idea how they're moving. But we let it show
that's
people
real.
how. We don't know how they're moving.
That's real.
So what's next for you, sir? What's next for Mr. Taylor? What you got going on next? When your next article going to drop? When will you start dropping a podcast? You can do it virtually. So what's going on?
Yeah, it'll be right now. I mean, as you probably know, the thing I've learned is batch recording. Do a bunch of them and just keep them going. So I have about 6 or 7 in the bank. Did a podcast will probably be out more than likely the first week of August, because I usually release on Fridays. So whatever the first Friday of August will be, there'll be some podcasts. We got some dope people, people that are from Newsweek doing it big. We got a person who has a production company actually based out in Texas where you're at. That's going to be a good interview. I think all of the interviews that I've done to date, they're going to be fantastic. Like I'm upping my game up and the caliber of guests. And it's not that we're trying to bring on anybody famous. If somebody comes on that wants to be famous, come on. I'm not going to turn them down. But I feel like the guests that I'm bringing on, their story needs to be shared. Their business needs to be promoted. And people just need to know about the beauty of Detroit. I mean, people representing New York that's from the D, Houston, Texas is from the D, California. I mean, we got everybody. Like, it's Detroit worldwide, you know?
Yeah, I'm proud of you, and I agree with you. You know, it's amazing when it's nice when people like what you're doing, and then they see what you're doing, and you have a great platform. It's all positive. Anyone should want to be a part of it, even if you're not from Detroit. Hell, I'm in Texas, and I'm trying to be part of it. I'm trying to be a part of Detroit Worldwide. I mean, can I get on? May I be a guest on Detroit Worldwide? I can say I'm from Detroit. You know, I know you. You know what? But I love what you're doing, and I think you have you're focused, and everything across the board from mentoring and being that person and writing these articles. Your whole entire thing, your whole makeup is all about uplifting and support. And I really appreciate you. I really do.
I appreciate you too.
Amazing things. Oh, stop.
I appreciate you. But no, you bring up a good point about what else am I doing. So one thing and shout out to Jason for kind of giving me this idea. I did an IG live with him probably about 2 weeks ago. And then the week before that, or the week after, we did an IG live with one of my previous guests, Venus Austin. So what I'm doing is having IG lives with my previous guests, but then also I'm doing something, you know, unique. And I'm not sure when this episode will be out, but this coming Monday, I'm doing IG live with somebody whose podcast that I appeared on. So I'm going to be doing, instead of people coming onto the podcast, and this is something that we'll talk about offline, I'm doing IG lives of people's podcasts and platforms that I've been on. So that way I can interview them, and people who listen to my podcast can learn about people like your podcast or other guests who or other podcasts that I've been on. So it's something that's, you know, instantaneous, but at the same time as me kind of sharing my platform, like, yo, we are podcasters, like, let's do this. And we're gonna have the first one with a cat whose podcast I was on, Amante Martin, the Process podcast, which was a really good, I had a really good time there. So we're gonna be breaking bread. And again, you and I can talk offline about you coming on there, you doing an IG live with me, because we can talk about, you know, what you're doing and me kind of turning the tables, if you will, learning more about the work that you're doing, and then at the same time you promoting your podcast. So I'm about sharing. You know, we got these platforms, let's just bring it together and share. We gotta come together somehow. Yeah.
So where can we find you? Give us all your links. And yeah,
for sure. You can find the podcast on Instagram, and that is at Detroit Worldwide Podcast. It's on Twitter, Detroit World Pod, I believe, because, you know, you can't use all the characters on Twitter. M Taylor 313, MTAYLOR 313, and 313 is the area code of Detroit, in case people are wondering, for both Instagram and Twitter. I'm not going to say Facebook because there's so many Marquis Taylors out there. You never know who you'll run into. So you can type my name. And if you see somebody that looks like me, go ahead and hit the ad or whatever, LinkedIn as well.
He has a great headshot. Okay, Marquis with the headshot with a clean cut. Go ahead.
Yeah. You can listen to the podcast, all streaming platforms, the same place you can listen to this podcast: Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, everywhere you can listen to a podcast, you can find us there.
Yeah.
And all of the episodes are dope. I'm biased, of course, but check them all out. You know, we got about 40 or so, I think, on there. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a lot of episodes, so you can binge on those, boys, and listen to the people. It's not about me. To paraphrase something that Jason said, Detroit is bigger than me, and
Yeah.
we know where we come from, and that's what the podcast is, bigger than me. So that's where you can find me.
That's
Oh,
it.
you want to read my articles? Spokesman-Recorder.
I'll put all that in. I'm gonna put all
Yeah,
that in the
put them
description.
all in.
All in the description. I just want to say thank you so much for sitting with me and just having a nice random but not so random conversation. I've been wanting you on. I'm like, I'm gonna have him on. I don't care. We're just talking about the sky is blue. We're gonna have a conversation because it's way overdue. Jason's been on the show numerous times,
I
and
see.
Caleb, and I was like, "How I can't have Marquis on the show? Like that's not right." And you're so humble, like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever. You know, if you want me on," I'm like, "Yeah, I want you on. What are you talking about?" So I want to say thank you so much for having this open dialogue with me about who you are, what you're doing, and how you've been feeling through everything. I know it's exhausting talking about it, but you know, it is what it is. It's real life. And I'll make sure that everyone gets your information. And this show will drop really soon. You're able to find Shall You Proceed. We are sponsored by Pure Joy CBD. You can find this show on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, um, pretty soon Pandora, Apple, all those great things. And I'm on Facebook at Shall You Proceed Podcast, on Instagram, Shall You Proceed Podcast. That's where I'm going to be. If you want to be on the show, contact me. In the show notes, you'll have all the information. Thank y'all so much. It's been amazing. Bye.